Another day, another study being covered by so many outlets about meat causing a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. This time, it's out of the Lancet, one of the most prestigious scientific journals in the world. Stay tuned because the results of this study will shock you if you've been living under a rock for 20 years. I'm getting really tired of this stuff because I think by now most of us are informed enough to know that there are varying degrees of scientific evidence, with the bottom pretty much being observational studies. Now, there are channels out there that are championing observational studies as the best science.
This is real science!
And there are other channels out there making Swiss cheese out of observational studies because they can never prove causation. That is, they can never prove that one thing specifically causes another thing, like a disease, to happen. As always, I'm just a normal person trying to make sense out of things. I think we should all do our own research, and I hope that my videos can help you in your journey towards healthier living. I'm never giving advice of any kind, and I'm hoping that we can all have healthy conversations and constructive disagreements about these topics. Please annihilate the like button to help this video out with the algorithm.
Do it! Do it!
It's been abysmal lately, and I greatly appreciate you all for watching and commenting. Now, back to the video. This new study, titled Meat Consumption and Incident Type 2 Diabetes, an individual participant federated meta-analysis of 1.9 million adults with 100,000 incident cases from 31 cohorts in 20 countries, aimed to find out if meat consumption increases the risk of getting type 2 diabetes. Luckily for us, the title spells out most of what this study talks about. To the author's relief, the study did find an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes in people that consumed processed red meats, unprocessed red meats, and poultry. Although they mentioned later on in the study that the association from this study is actually weaker than Harvard's red meat and type 2 diabetes study from last year. But we have to ask ourselves, how was the data obtained for this study? Did they have 1.9 million participants, some of which were fed diets with no red meat or poultry?
We taught a lion to eat tofu!
And some of which that were fed diets that contained red meat or poultry over a long period of time to see how many participants developed type 2 diabetes? No. No, they did not. And this is why the headlines at this point are getting pretty, let's say, tedious. Here's how the study got its data. 26 of the cohorts, which is the groups of people, used food frequency questionnaires. 3 used dietary history, and 2 used dietary records. So the vast majority of the cohorts in the study were in the group using food frequency questionnaires. In case this is your first time hearing about this, a food frequency questionnaire is a survey that asks patients what they ate, how often they ate during the week, month, or year, and a follow-up survey is done at some point in the future, or possibly multiple times in the future. It relies very heavily on you remembering what you ate last weekend and exactly how many grams or how many cups of whatever meat, I don't know. And as you can probably guess, there are a lot of problems with this kind of data. According to Forbes, which I used one of my 4 free articles to read, the study found that eating 50 grams of processed meat a day, or a little over 1/10 of a pound, was associated with a 15% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes in the next 10 years. And eating 100 grams of unprocessed meat a day, which is a little less than 1/4 of a pound, was associated with a 10% higher risk. You know, whenever I see these higher risk figures, the first question I have personally is, compared to what? And in this case, I assume they mean it's compared to if you're an average person in a Western nation with an office job and have a pretty sedentary lifestyle. I don't think this is really applying to someone who is living very actively or requires specific types of nutrition that might be different, possibly like an athlete or I don't know, maybe someone who's working on their feet all day in a metal shop or wood shop or something like that. Anyway, if that's the case, if they do mean an average person with an office job and a sedentary lifestyle, then the studies have a simple solution, which is decrease your meat intake. But let's look at the main risk factors for type 2 diabetes, other than meat. The Mayo Clinic says the following are risk factors for type 2 diabetes: weight, fat distribution, inactivity, family history, race and ethnicity, blood lipid levels, specifically low levels of HDL, which is interesting, age, prediabetes, pregnancy, and polycystic ovary syndrome. And if we do a quick Control F, it shows us that red meat and meat aren't even listed on this page at all. Maybe they're on some other website page. You can look it up. I don't know. But anyway, a saving grace of the article from Forbes that's covering this study is that, surprisingly, at the very end, they tell us that this is an observational study and therefore cannot prove a causal relationship. And if this surprises you, you really have been living under a rock for decades. I think that it's important for everyone these days to have some degree of scientific literacy, even if it's rudimentary. And with that, in the discussion section of most of these studies, they'll actually tell you the limitations of the study. And this one's no different. One of the big problems with this is that a lot of studies out there are behind a paywall. So even if you want to, you can't get to this discussion section or the data or any part of the study other than the abstract. But luckily, some are not behind a paywall. The problem I have with these types of studies is that there probably isn't one diet that will work with every single person on Earth. And to make a blanket statement that isn't even a proof of a causal relationship that meat consumption increases everyone's risk of developing type 2 diabetes over a 10-year period seems like, let's just say it seems like a bit much. Not to mention, if you dig in this paper, you will find that they state that there are no causal mechanisms that have been discovered linking meat to type 2 diabetes. So could it be co-founders, sedentary lifestyle, the standard American, Australian, Western diet? With that said, this is it for today, but what do you think? Does meat increase your risk of diabetes? Do you avoid meat? Do you not avoid meat? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing for more content like this. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and thank you for watching. Take care.